Good morning, Mosala Mahle. Sibonga kakhulu kusindikhethe kuvuka nathi lo mhla ekseni. Sanibusela sanamukela lo mhla ehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show. Thanks so much for joining us. It is the 4th of January 2023. Nivusela ngilungelele makakwela kukhumbuta ukuthi you can also watch Kusile Breakfast Show on YouTube as well as on your phone if you have the Eswatini TV app. Lilanga lelikhulu ke lo mhla njengoba athi 4 January nje labantu labakhubateke ngekungaboni emehlweni njengoba bakubha i-World Braille Day. Lilanga ke leli ligujwa ngaphansi we theme lethi Reaching Blind and visually impaired persons. Simo siba madema kakhulu for bamfula bangaboni kahle emehlweni nakubethu kwabona umkhuhlane i-COVID-19 asibonga nje tindzaba tokuba independent njengoba labanye bathi khansi saba isolated siba kakhulu especially for people who rely on the use of touch to communicate their needs and access information. Kuhlani COVID-19 ke so sirevelele ukuthi ku critical noma ke kubalekile ukuthi ku produce essential information in inaccessible formats including braille and audible formats. Nasibuka nje live la seMalawi inhlangano ye UNDP say produce about 4,050 braille materials on awareness and prevention of COVID-19. Kanti ke veni la Ethiopia khona the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights disseminated audio information and education and communication materials to media professionals and has developed braille versions of the educational messages. Ngazena lapha ekhaya Eswatini uhulumende miningi imetamo la yendako kuzama kwenda impilo tebamfu labangabona emehlweni ukuthi tibe ngileto leti kahle. Kanti kubuka nje leto mhlambe leti ihamba ngaphandle kwakuleli nasibuka nje lokuchubeka kwa event la Brazil ngekusho kwembiko lokhishwa iPeruvian National Civil Registry naphela umnyaka wa 2022 banfana labadelwe kulela live eminyakeni ophelile babhaliswe as Pele Ray Pele njengendlela yokumhlonipha Pele loshiye emhlabeni aneminyaka lengu-82. Azike ngamsombuluko thousands of football fans gathered at the stadium of Brazilian club Santos where he played from 1956 to 1974 njengendlela nje yokumvalelisa. Azike itolo ke ngalesibili Pele ubekwe endlini yakhe yokugcina emva kwe memorial service lebebanjelwe kuletinye stadium khona eBrazil. Mengameli welive leBrazil Luiz Lula da Silva abengcenye yale nkonzo lebengenelwe bantfu labangentulo kwa 200,000. Kanti ke sadibuketa kabandi leto nasibuya khona etimakethe asenishiye sibuya netindaba tefuthi ecala.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
I do the most.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store. We're good together.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Lesivusele nawo losanza kusivulela sitawungena etindzabeni tetfu. Silengo simswati wesithathu sichubekile nekuhola sive engcwaleni lencane esigodlweni ebuhleni. Kugidwa kolomkhosi ebuhleni kukhiphela ebaleni intuthuko leseyendekile edolobheni lasebuhleni lokulidolobha lelikhula ngelizinga lelijabulisako.
Semhlaba siqhubekile nokugidza inqola lencane khona esigodlweni ebuhleni esifundeni sakaHoho. Silobe singithwe ngemakhosikazi, sisingithwe abantu abenkosi nandvunankulu welive. Kanti ingonyama beyiphinze njalo isingithwe ngilaqhubetelako nelithango nelibutho lembali. Indlela yokuthi kube senqoleni lencane ungakhangwa buhle belidolobha lasebuhleni. Sigodlo sasebuhleni sakhelene nalo lelidolobha lelikhula ngalokujabulisako. Ulandzela ukuthi ingonyama ibe nembono yokuthi likhule libe lidolobha leliphelele. Lelidolobha lingephasi kwamasipala wasebuhleni kanti intuthuko yalo ifaka ekhathi kwakhiwa kwelibhilidi ibuhleni plaza. Intuthuko ke letawulandzela ifaka ekhathi kusikwa kwetitandi kwakhiwa kwemigwaqo neligalaji lekwetha petrol phecelezi filling station leseliphela. Lababukela idolobha bathi imikhosi yelive lebanjelwa esigodlweni njengayo inqola lencane ibashiya abamanzatela abosomabhizinisi bakuleli dolobha ikakhulu lapho labathengisa italadini. Iyachubeka ke yona inqola lencane khona esigodlweni ebuhleni kanti lobika kongisandile makhanya khona esigodlweni ebuhleni.
Umkhosi wencwala solo uqhubeka ngemgcumo nangilithasasa lisetulo esigodlweni elitsitsini. Emabutho ngekwehlukana kwawo aholwa indlovukazi Mhlekazi ekugitseni incwala lencane esigodlweni.
Indlovukazi Mhlekazi yaqhubeka nokuhola sive ukugitseni incwala lencane esigodlweni elitsitsini. Kusukela indlovu yemhlaba yasala esigodlweni elitsitsini ekubeni ingonyama inkosi Mswati wesithathu iqhubekele kuletinye izigodlo. Indlovukazi Mhlekazi solo isingethwe ngemakhosikazi esilo emazinyane bogogo balondolozi bamfa benkosi tindvuna tembuso kanye nemabandla ngokwehlukana kwawo. Lo mkhosi uchubeka nokuba impumelelo njengoba sive solo seungenela ngemdlandla kusukela elangeni lokucala netivakashi letibuya kulamanye amave nadobethi solo tibonakala tibamtsibi munye nesive semaswati kulomkhosi lomkhulu nakangaka. Lokhu ke kungenxa yokuthi lona mkhosi sekwaba ngumkhosi lowatiwa emhlabeni wonke jikelele. Edintsabeni kubika Pholile Maziya esigodlweni elitsitsini.
Basabambe kuba imvonete emcebo waphansi nemandla Jabulani Mabuza uthi kushoda kwagasolina kuletinye tindzawo tekwetha petrol kungenxa yetinkinga lababhekana nato kuleto tinkampani akusiyo inkinga lebangwe nguhulumende. Mabuza uthi uyethemba ukuthi le inkampani titayilungisa le nkinga.
Ngekusho kwalusabambe kuba induna ngicebo waphansi nemandla Jabulani Mabuza kushoda kwapetrol apha eveni kuletinye tindzawo letetha yinake petrol akusiyo inkinga lebangwe nguhulumende. Mabuza uthi bayahlangana nabo-ke banikati balama filling station kodwa makuqatulula le nkinga leseyibonakala engathi seyiyanza.
Libandla lakithi laka natural belihlangene namhla nabo bathembisa ukuthi cha batawuzama nabakuchaza bathi ngema logistics nje tindzaba ukuthi mhlawumbe njengoba sathi ukuthi bo December etinyanga la khona kuba kupeak kusebenta kwemabhizinisi khanze ukuthi ke tinkampani ema truck lalanza labo bo fuel athi afika la abalanza khona khanze athi ema line madze kakhulu bese ke sekwenta ukuthi adelay kubuya ngesikhathi kwesinye isikhathi mhlawumbe kube ngileto nje tinkinga letihambelana nokuthi kukhanzakale kunjani embili noma ke in terms of transport kuhambe njani. Asisho ke naloko ukuthi akusito tonke letinkampani lama filling stations lesinawo even labe naletinkinga akhona lamanye lokhanza sivele kuwo ngathi leto tinkinga tikakhudlwanyana akhona njalo lokhanza ukuthi bekanawo lo fuel mane ukhanza ukuthi ngalo sekukhona lamanye amagaraji lade bese ke lo mthwalo oba mnengi kuleyo filling station leyo so ukhanza ukuthi nabo ke sebagcina barana out noma ke sekuba naleyo shortage.
Mabuza uthi banikati baletinkampani bayathembisa sikonke kutawulunga masinyane kungathi kamedeke emakhasimende. Elindzabeni ngemgiyane emsebenzini naSmuva Shongwe eMbabane.
Bapalanelo omkhulu etiko letemisebenzi lemkhulu nekutfutsa Thulani Mkhaliphi uthi leli tiko litayihambisa embili emaphakelweni aleli tiko indzaba yekulungiswa kwemigwaco yela kuleli lokufaka ekhatsi kanye naleyo yelitiyela. Mkhaliphi ukusho lokho nakaphendvula ukuthi lendane litiko kulungisa imigwaco lengekho esimeni esikahle velonke.
Mapalanelo omkhulu etiko letemisebenzi lemkhulu nekutfutsa Thulani Mkhaliphi uthi njengalokho imigwaco yelitiyela hebekathi ichibelwe seyiphinze futhi seyinemigosi ema-potholes lelitiko lizosukumisa lihlelo lokulungisa lemigwaco.
Sicedzile ke le condition survey nyalo nje lokuphela December sesinayo sibe siyilauncha nje thine le condition survey ukuthi noma ngawungakuphi ngakini noma kusemgwaco wesikondiyela noma ngabe umgwaco wesikondiyela stowati lokuthi lokulimala kwalomgwaco kusezingeni lelingakanani nyalo kutawudzingeka malini ukuthi siwulungise lemgwaco kufuthi nguphi lesingacala ngayo ngoba uma sesibuka nje ngiyo yonke lemigwaco kepha ke ngeke sikhona eliqinisho lithonjalo lokuthi siyilungise yonke ngasikhathi sinye.
Mkhaliphi uqhubeka ukuchaza nangehlelo lokulungisa imigwaco ezitindzaweni letisemakhaya.
Nalele emakhaya ke imigwaco naye ayikasalile condition survey ngoba nayo sithite asale siyenta nje yonke lemigwaco lekhona even nalele emakhaya bo district roads nema feeder roads nayo sitobuka le condition yayo nalama block lale emakhaya nayo sitobona ku condition yayo kuze kuthi sitokwakha kenyalo I master plan yonke lemigwaco lalaveni lokuthi kulungiswa kuphi.
Mkhaliphi uthi kulungisa yonke imigwaco kuleli kungabi yatigitsigitsi temalangeni etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla kunavuma inkosi inzinisa sisembabane.
Egameni lesilo somhlaba ingwenyama yenkosi eMswati wesithathu indlovukazi Mhlekazi uhulumende kanye nesive sonke samaSwati umhlonishwa ndvunankulu Cleopas Dlamini sawulilele umholi wamakatolika emhlabeni Pope Francis lidolobha leVatican ngekuhamba emhlabeni kwaloyo lebaka ngumholi wamakatolika Pope Emeritus Benedict. Ndvunankulu uthi Pope Benedict beka ngumholi locotfo nalodlale inzima lenkulu ekuhlanganiseni bazalwane. Ndvunankulu uthi kungumthandazo weMaswati ukuthi lo mdzala wetinsuku utawujujuta tihlobo nebangani kanye nelibandla lonke lamakatolika kulesikhathi lesimadima kangaka. Umphathi wesifundza elibonjeni Themba Msibi ucela sive kanye netinhlangothi letahlukene letitane ntfutfuko kulesifundza ukuthi sichubeke sibambisane njengoba sendile eminyakeni lophelile. Uthi kulo mnyaka lophelile sive lesengcako enkulungwaneni sitfole imandi lahlobile ekudla kanye ekutitfutfukisa. Lokhu kukhulume ngesikhathi akhulumisana netintatheli talomsakato.
Kubekwa kakhulu njengoba inkosi tibusisile nje naselibonjeni wenta ukuthi live litinte lihlale kwatiwe ukuthi kunemholo walo lokho senta ukuthi intuthuko ke seyitawubonakala kule dotindzawo ngoba uma kubangwa kude letikhulu lentuthuko iyakhinyabeteka ngakho sekuthalwandle enkosini yesive seMaswati lapho besite khona inkundla eGilgane nayo yakhiwe kuyi-improvement ke noma ke kuyi-development kithi ngoba la tikhulu lowo khanza ukuthi setikhanza sekukhashane esiphofaneni vumise futhi ukuthi elibonjeni World Vision usibambisile kakhulu abambisene nahulumende kwakhiwa kwaletha amanti esiveni nambasada wase Republic of China on Taiwan bahamba bayosukumisa nakhona luhlelo lwemanti ukuthi lesasive sithole emanti dudane sithole futhi emanti lahlobile awungakhuthatha sifunza selibombo sive sonke libonjeni ukuthi le ntuthuko bekunene ayivinjwa ke leni ngehlandla dot imbili ngoba ngiyo leshintsha kuphila kwethu sithandze ukuthi siyakhona ukuthi sebenta.
Umbiko lophelele wenhlangano yabaphalali yeSwatini Red Cross Society ukhomba ukuthi sangcopfole sashaya empolonjeni ngaphansi kwenkundla yasemotshane ngelilanga laKhisimusi iminyaka nophelile sashiya abantu labalikhulu ne-64 balemalelwe impahla yabo lubukete inhlelo enhlanganweni esiphambano lesibovu Elliot Jele uthi emakhaya la nge-30 sekanikwe emaseyili labekwe eliphahleni letindlu kude imvula engasangeni.
Lesangcotfo besikade silimete imihle ngama250 endaweni yasembolonjeni lobukete inhlelo enhlanganweni yabaphalali yeSwatini Red Cross Society Elliot Jele uchaza kabanti ngalombiko lophelele wentiwe kulenhlangano ngalesangcotfo.
Akusibo bonke lebesibanika lusito ngoba labanye bebasho ukuthi batawukhona labanye njalo basho lokuthi bacela kusitwa ikakhulu bacela nje lokuphuthumako njengelo lokweliplastic lesiye sibembonyele ngako sinikeke kubo kulabo laba sheet lango 27 shomi lamabili sisabukile ke ukuthi ngoba umsebenzi wekuphunga tehlakalo Red Cross ukwenta lokho kepha bese siyabika nasemahhovisi lamakhulu office la DPMO ikakhulu la NDMA sikhone kubukisana ukuthi ingabe seyini lenye lesinga lapha ngayo noma lesingasita ngayo.
Labo labatfola isito lemaseyini batsalusito kakhulu njengalokuthi imvula letine kulamalanga laphelile yathi kabahluphi.
Ngoba livalile lapha la kwabhidlita khona lokwemaje. Vele cishe akwasimosha vele ngoba kwanetha into letiningi ngoba kwasekude la ungavaka khona kwakhaya yonke lenzawo.
Lingisitile shembo babe kakhulu leseyili akunetha nje la kamereni nami nakulala khona. Ngale sele site ngayo kusinika lo manje niphise nihambe nibuye shemntu sizamele amathayela stofaka nalapha emafasterweni ngifake emaphepha nema-cardbox lawa hohlo kwakhona namafastero.
Labo tindlu tabo talimala emathayela kanye namafastelo bacela lusito emaswatini ukuthi akathinzane nenhlangano esiphambano lesibovu kuthi batositakala etindzabeni kubika Fortune Dlangamandla isembolonjeni.
Behlelo lenhlangano esiphambano lesibovu ibaphalali yeSwatini Red Cross Society leliseta inkundleni letine kuleli lelisita abantu labangetulo kwetinkhulungwane letisihlanu ukubheka ukuthi kulomnyaka lufake lusito lwemithi yekujova timbuti futhi bafuye batawuphinze bafundziswe ngekufuya tinkhukhu. Lokhu kuvete ngilobukelo lihlelo siphelele mkhonda lochaza kabanti ngalomsebenzi.
Khona lesihlose kubasita ngetindzaba tekufuya tinkhukhu. Labo ke sisetawubafundisa kule nyanga ya January noma yaBhimbidwane lesikuyo batabe bafunza endzabeni ukuthi tinkuku tifuyeka kanjani nekwekuthi ke batsingane sitaseke kuyona lenyanga siyakhona ukuthi ke sigcine nabo sibabhadele bakhone ke ukuthenga leto tinkuku kulabo labete kulabo labanato ukhanza kwekuthi bona sebathenga lokudla noma bathenga imithi yekujova letinkuku tabo ukuze abantu bakhone ukukhicita. Labanye lesinabo kulolu hlelo ngilabo laba lesibelekelela ngemijovo yetimbudi. Nabo ke batawufunza kule nyanga ya January bese kuyendlula lapho bayithola le mali yekuthi ke bathenge le mijovo. Siyesebenzisane ke kakhulu ke nemimango sikhona ukuthi basibambise simemetele ukuthi bete labantu etindzaweni letitsite ema suppliers eteke abathengisele bakuthole dudane letinto.
Njengoba kusaqala umnyaka lo weluleka ngetimali Terence Twala uthi lenye indlela yokugwema kungena etikweletini kuvula emabhuku ekonga ebhange ungenele netinhlangano nekonga nekwebolekisa. Twala uthi esikhatsini esinyenti bantfu bangena etikweletini ngoba betama kubamba lizinga labacabanga ukuthi kumele baphile ngalo bangabuki imali labanayo.
Umsakato wetitfombe i-Eswatini Television Authority ucocisene nalo weluleka ngetimali lapha eveni Terence Twala njengoba kusaqala umnyaka kweluleka sive ngetindlela lesingatisebentisa tekonga imali kugwema kuhlaselwa tikweneti letigcine setitsikabeta nekuphila kwengcondvo pheceleti stress. Twala ukhutsatile ke kutsi sive siphile ngemali lekhona hayi kwetama kubamba lizinga labacabanga ukuthi kumele baphile ngalo bavule futhi nemabhuku ekonga ebhange bangenele futhi netinhlangano tekonga nekwebolekisa.
So nyalo ke asiqale sijoine le stokfela sijoinela ama cooperatives sivule nema accounts ekuseva la endzaweni tekuseva sendela ukuthi nakufika lesikhathi sokuthi sidingeka letimali kutholakala ukuthi letimali sidibekile asiyisiyofuna imali etikwelede. So imali etikwelede asiyisebenzisele lama projects lamakhulu njengekuthenga imoto kwakha nekufunza. Lokho lokuncane lesingakhona ukuthi singabo 10,000 bo singakhona ukubekela ngenyanga. Kakhulu sicela abaqashi ngoba ngibo labakhona kubamba imali la ekucalelwa ukuthi abawavumele ukuthi first line of defense kube ngileti tokfela letila ngekhathi let controlwa ngibona labasebenzi babo ngoba nangabe kunestokfela la ngekhathi ngingakacabanga ukuyoboleka la ngaphandle ngicela la ngekhathi kulena lesishito thina ukuthi interest ayibe ngaka. Lokho kuyasita ukuthi umuntu ukweleta sikweleta sa 12 months ngoba ngekhathi sifuna kusharisha ngaDecember kanti nathi semumkhipha la tawuhamba ele ngaphandle athola bomashonisa babo 40% bese sokuba nestress ke bese sekuaffecte iproduction. Baqashi kufuna ukuthi babuye badlale lichaza labo kule game ye-personal finance management.
Twala uvetile nekuthi tifundvo tekuphatfwa nekusebenziswa kwemali tidzinga kuhlanyelwa kubafundzi etikolweni kakhulukade emakolishi kute live lithuthuke liye embili. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Samkelisuye Khoza nginasikhumbuzo Dlamini enhlambeni.
Libandla lelengamele kusebenta kwetimali Financial Services Regulatory Authority licela abomashonisa ukuthi balandzele umthetho inzunzo labayitfola ekubolekiseni timali ingabi ngilesetulu. Mbuso Gameza waleli bandla uthi labanye bomashonisa babese sebanyusa indalo lokuyimvo lengekho emthethweni.
Libandla lelibuka itimali kuleli i-Financial Services Regulatory Authority lokuyi-FSRA icela babolekisi betimali nabo mashonisa ukuthi bawulandzele umtsetfo njalo basabolekisa ngadoke timali. Mbuso Gametse waloke leli bandla uthi kunemtsetfo lokumele ulandzelwe njalo.
Siphela ukhona umthetho lo esithi Consumer Credit Act lekufanele ukuthi nalabo lebabolekisako bawunake lo mthetho. Yebo ke obviously sasebenza indaba yema regulations awu lo mthetho lekuyinto lesicabanga ukuthi itawuphumelela masinyane nje ukuthi nama regulations abe khona. Yangona atawuphinde futhi achaze kabanti ngekuthi labo lebabolekisako kufanele kusibenze njani.
Nondumiso Simelane lochamuka kumlamuli lokungu-ombudsman uthi bayadithatha ke dinyathelo nakukhona lophula umthetho kubabolekisi betimali.
Dakubuta wena lotako ukhala ngaloyo le uthola isito wakweboleka imali ngandlela thide kwekucala kwekuthi ingabe ngekwati kwakho unayo yini imvume lesuka kumlawuli. Uma ngabe ke bekanayo imvumo lapho sinemandla lagcwele ukuthi le ndaba yakho siyemukele siyisebenzele thine ize ifike ekuphetheni kwayo. kodwa uma ngabe imphendulo yakho ita ukuthi ude imvumo noma ke kumbe award sine sitawendlula siphenyele thine ukuthi vele lothi wena ukusitile unayo indlemvumo.
Kanzi bacela sive ukuthi sibike nakukhona lobita indalo lesetulu ethi Ndzabeni ngengiyeni Msibi nasimuva Shongwe sisembabane.
Kutemidlalo, inhlangano yelutho Dlamini Foundation lekusikhwama lesihlose ukuthuthukisa abantu labasha ngakutemakhono nakutenhlalakahle seyihlomelise emacembu lamane labebo boshampeni benzebe yemkhumula mjezi lebeyisekelwe ngemali etinkulungwane letinge-35 35,000 emalangeni.
La maqembu labebo shampeni kube yilozaza yasemvuma Mpumalanga ACC yasebulanzeni Rising Shine yasenkamazi kanye nenkomazi Man City yasekwaliweni. Sihlalo welutho Foundation Lutho Dlamini uthi isifiso sabo kubona umuntu lomusha atithuthukisa ngelikhono lanalo.
We registered a foundation lekuthiwa Lutho Dlamini. It's a legally registered foundation. I-aim yayo empeleni ekusita abantu labasha ba realize ama potential zabo socially, psychologically, academically. So kwanyalo sisaqala njengale midlalo. And another sport that we want to bring is Charlie boxing because we realize ukuthi singawonke lama sports sifake labantwana labasha labancane nalabadzala ukuthi ba participate. But more than anything else, the foundation is a legacy that we want to leave ukuthi sisite labantwana.
Sihlalo wenzingeni league inhlanhla malaza ubongele sikhwama ngekusekela lemidlalo lekathi ikuthatha bunye emimangweni.
Siyisha singilabadzala cishe konke lamana njani la khona nje empilweni abantu abadzala kunabo gogo kunabo bani soko siyakhona ukuthi sihlangane sivikeleke nasetintweni letinye kakhulu nje ngidlisa kubonga kulunga laseParliament.
Sikhwama selutho Foundation sisithembise ukuthi sitawubasekela abantu labasha kuthi tonke inhlobo temidlalo. Ndzabeni Eswatini TV ngibongozi Magagule Bulanzeni.
27 minutes after 7 sathi phetha indzaba tethu ngaledo temidlalo sithawu saselikhefu sibuye siqhubeke nelihlelo esenshini semoselulu.
Le decentralization uma siyawiqinisa ngiyona iyawususa uhulumende losembabane njengoba sathi ukuthi uhulumende wonke uhlele embabane kodwa ke le bhili iyawuletha ukuthi lonke liswati lathi ukuthi uhulumende ngumphethe ngetandla.
Na minister angati ngimjumisa kakhulu ukuthi abhale report lenhle kangaka because uansarishe lenkinga lesimbute yona. Why answerisha honestly?
We have seen what has come out of Tibuki. It's a fantastic system. I think even some countries of the world want to copy the system. But we are letting ourselves down. And we need to change that.
Safunza ngetikeshi lebetendiwa kukhulunywa ngato tifundzisa tatendelwa ukuthi noma kungaku-instilo kufaka kuyangena lokhu kuyafundiswa ukuthi lokhu umhambo walakhaya ngizengabekisa nje ngathi umntwana ekhaya nakunemazayoni awuphiki umbona mhlawumbe khanza shasi kugogo kaphethe indvukwana yakhe ubone uzokukhala inkonzo lesetshenziswa kuleli khaya.
Le mbabane kusetshenziswa ngema-general orders aseNgilandi. Uyabona ukuthi akuhambisani nale constitution yethu. Ama-general order esebenza ngawo le mbabane siwasusaneni sitokwathi kufaka lokho kwetingubo.
Akukahlakaniphi kulahleka kwemuntu alahleke indlela seyikhona. Umuntu lekubheka ukuthi alahleke ngilawutawubhodula indlela. Umhlaba unawo onke ama-systems lokhanza ukuthi akhona. Labanye basuke kuphi baya kuphi, labanye basuke kuphi baya kuphi. Sesifunze sile maswati
impela ngiqinisile mangamele tinkuni imbunga iqinisile nayikhuluma ukuthi induna ithi labanye abaconzi nami bengilithethe njengoba isho.
Welcome back. Asivuselana losanza kuzivulela kulesikhathi sitawubuka indzaba lethamba imbili kulamanye emave sitawucala ngene report levetako ukuthi isifundza se-Afrika lokungenani sitawuhlaselwa tikhukhula noma ke ama-floods njalo ngeminyaka lengu-40.
Once-a-century floods are projected to start happening once every 40 years thanks to rising sea levels caused by climate change, according to the new report from the Africa Center for Strategic Studies, a US Department of Defense-funded think tank. Experts say the disruption to Africa's coastal and port cities will have a devastating impact on inland economic growth. On the outskirts of Benin's economic capital, Cotonou, dwellings in the town of Gambi are built on stilts in a coastal lagoon. It's sometimes referred to as the Venice of Africa. Local government officials in the commune of Soava, where Gambi is located, say flooding has gotten worse in recent decades.
Dans la commune de Soava ici, il y a deux activités principales.
There are two primary economic activities here in the commune of Soava, agriculture and fishing. So when the water rises, the crops are destroyed. Also, the freshwater fish disappear. As a result, economic life becomes difficult.
The effects on the community have been devastating. Residents say their houses have been rendered uninhabitable and
many of our belongings were destroyed. Because of the flooding, the house you see was destroyed last year, and I had to rebuild it on another piece of land to prevent the water from coming in again.
He says he knows parents whose children drowned in the flooding. Alexandra Bodo, another Gambi resident, says his livestock living in this pen were lost to the flood and the water filled his house to this level.
We lose our houses and we have no money to rebuild them, so the whole family sleeps in a boat.
Communities along the coast around estuaries and coastal lagoons like Gambi will be the first to bear the brunt of the impacts. Flooding and coastal erosion will also affect Africa's ports. Not enough is being done, according to economists.
One of the things that I find shocking is how little finance is going to support these cities overall in terms of building infrastructure and services. But particularly with climate, it's extremely important that we not only adapt, but with the rising sea levels, that mitigation is taken into account as well.
Experts say the stretch of West Africa's coastline from Abidjan to Lagos is on track to become the world's largest megalopolis and could be home to 500 million people by the end of this century.
That's probably 50% of Africa's, or more than 50% of Africa's total GDP in that strip. So if it develops well, it could really anchor the continent, it could anchor the globe in terms of heading into this sustainable development.
Aside from Gambi, Lagos and Ghana's capital of Accra experienced major floods in 2022. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Gambi, Benin.
Asike sachubeka netange phandle kwakuleli kunekuthukuthela kanye nekulila nekuzela eveni lase-Russia kulandzela ukuthi emasotsha ase-Ukraine ahlasele emasotsha ase-Russia nge-New Year's Eve.
A temporary barracks for Russian troops reduced to rubble. The New Year's Eve attack in occupied Makiivka, the twin city of regional capital Donetsk, was one of the deadliest acknowledged by Russia since the start of its invasion. In a rare disclosure, the Russian Defense Ministry said dozens were killed in the strikes, carried out with US-made HIMARS missiles.
As a result of the strike by 4 rockets, 63 Russian servicemen were killed.
Russian military bloggers accused Moscow of downplaying the death toll, which they say could be in the hundreds. Many, including Russian lawmakers, also questioned why commanders knowingly housed soldiers in the same location as ammunition supplies, within range of Ukrainian rockets. While Kyiv almost never claims responsibility for attacks on Russian-controlled territory, the General Staff of Ukraine's armed forces commented on the strikes.
On December 31st, up to 10 units of enemy military equipment of various types were destroyed and damaged in the settlement of Makivka in the Donetsk region. The losses of personnel of the occupiers are being determined.
Ukraine earlier said the attack killed nearly 400 Russian troops. Most of the soldiers staying in the barracks are believed to be Russians just recently drafted into Putin's war.
Isimo sekuguquguquka kwesimo selitulu sesende kokuthi busika esifundeni se-Europe sebengileso sibuba ngilobo lobangakajwayeleki.
At the Lax ski resort in Switzerland, snow cannons were working overtime as skiers tried to make the best of the warm weather.
Look, the snow is really wet. It's no longer firm. It's like we're in spring.
Only 2 days in, 2023 is already looking like one of the warmest years in European history. At least 8 countries, including Denmark, the Netherlands, and the Czech Republic, have registered their hottest January day ever, while thousands of local heat records have been broken across the continent. On New Year's Eve, northern Spain and the south of France were basking in beach weather, while in Bucharest, locals and tourists celebrated by taking a dip in an open-air pool. In Warsaw, usually under a blanket of snow at this time of year, temperatures rose to 18 degrees Celsius on the second day of January. An unusual and alarming collection of extreme weather events that's partly caused by a warm air mass traveling across Europe.
A mass of air from the southwest brought about these temperatures, not only in Poland, but also in Germany and Central Europe.
Climatologists say the unusual temperatures have been exacerbated by climate change and warn that warmer winters are likely to become the new normal as the atmosphere and the oceans continue to heat up.
As the European Parliament ngemsombuluko sesukumise an urgent procedure to lift the immunity of 2 MEPs amid a corruption scandal linked to Qatar.
It's another twist in the EU's bribery scandal, with 2 more MEPs now in the spotlight. The announcement was made by the President herself, Roberta Metsola, in a tweet.
Following a request from the Belgian judicial authorities, have launched an urgent procedure for the waiver of immunity of 2 members of the European Parliament. There will be no impunity, none.
According to sources close to the investigation, the 2 MEPs in question are Belgian Mark Tarabella and Italian Andrea Cozzolino. They'd already been suspended by their respective national parties, and the full chamber will vote on removing their immunity later this month. Both are targets of the investigation that led to the arrest of Eva Kaili, the former Vice President of the EU Parliament, and 3 others, including her partner, Francesco Giorgi. It's Giorgi himself who allegedly accused Cozzolino, his former boss, and Tarabella of taking money from Qatar. Last month, Belgian police conducted about 20 searches of homes and offices of MEPs, lobbyists, and parliamentary staff. They suspected that some may be taking bribes from Qatar to influence EU decision-making. At least 1.5 million euros in cash were seized by authorities, a scandal that has sent shockwaves through the core of EU institutions. The 4 defendants are currently behind bars while they await their trial.
Sisocibana tutangephandle kwakuleli live lemelika kanye nesifundza se-Middle East emave lafaka ekhatsi UAE ayeluligceka luvakasho lwa minister wase-Israel ukuthi avakashele i-Al-Aqsa Mosque compound.
His stated intention of visiting the site earlier this week drew threats from Islamic militant group Hamas, but that didn't put off Itamar Ben-Gvir. The ultra-nationalist Israeli National Security Minister started Tuesday with a visit to the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound, or Temple Mount, to Jews.
The Israeli government I'm a member of will not surrender to a despicable, murderous organization. The Temple Mount is open to all, and if Hamas thinks that it will deter me with threats, they should understand times have changed.
The hilltop is the 3rd holiest site in Islam and the holiest site for Jews. Israel captured it from Jordan in 1967, but the Jordanians remain its official custodians, under an agreement which allows Muslims to enter any time, while non-Muslims can only do so at certain times and on condition they don't pray. In recent years, though, there's been a growing movement of Jews who support worship at the site. Ben-Gvir has long called for greater Jewish access and has visited before, although Tuesday was his first time as a minister. The Palestinians have called it an unprecedented provocation.
We consider this break-in as an official Israeli invitation to a round of violence that will be hard to control. We call on the international community and especially the American administration to move immediately and to stop the activities of this government.
Competing claims to the holy site have sparked numerous rounds of violence in the past. In 2000, a visit by then opposition leader Ariel Sharon, accompanied by more than 1,000 heavily armed police and soldiers, sparked the second Palestinian Intifada, which lasted until 2005. Palestinians view Ben-Gvir's visit as a potential precursor to Israel's new far-right government taking complete control over the compound. But Benjamin Netanyahu, now in his 6th term as Israeli Prime Minister, has pledged to preserve the status quo around holy sites.
Azikele isikhathi sitawubukana ngumbiko lokhuluma ngesimo sokufunda ngaphansi kwe-era ye-COVID-19. UNESCO uyasichazela ukuthi ngabe intiphi inhlelo lati icubile ngaphansi kwaso lesimo semkhuhlane.
The crisis has affected education in different forms and different ways, but I think it's very important to say that we had the crisis before the crisis. The learning crisis predated the COVID. We had already more than 280 young people who dropped out or who didn't access to education. We had more than 770 million people who were illiterate. The COVID has amplified some of these aspects. First of all, we had 1.6 billion learners who were out of education for several months. We had people who were not connected to internet and didn't have opportunity to learn. But most probably the most important and the most negative impact is about the learning losses that will impact the learning and the future of education and the future of the work of many people who have suffered from this crisis. In addition to education, we have a crisis of well-being. We had people who are affected by anxiety, by issues related to violence at home, by early marriage, and sometimes even early work. And I would say, most importantly, this has impacted everybody on earth, but it is unequal. The learning losses are unequal across the countries. Learning losses are unequal within the same country across the different socioeconomic backgrounds. I think usually countries will borrow policies from each other, and usually it's the developing economies that will borrow the models from the developed economies. Take, for example, dual system that countries will borrow from Germany. Take, for example, colleges, education that countries will borrow from the US. But in the crisis, everybody was faced with the same challenge. And developing economies or developed economies will had to learn from each other. What was important for the international cooperation is that there was this feeling that countries have to come together, had to share experience and expertise, had to learn from each other. And it's amazing, to give you an example, in the past, to organize a large international meeting of ministers, it will take us months, if not years. In 2 weeks, we organized an international ministerial meeting of education, and we had more than 70 ministers around the table. That's an example of how the crisis has impacted the international cooperation in terms of the celerity, but also in terms of the interest to share knowledge, to share expertise, but also to learn from each other. UNESCO has moved very fast. We had 3 actions that we have taken. One, acting as a convening power, and we organized a ministerial meeting. We launched a global education coalition that leveraged the potential of UN organization, private sector, civil society, research institution, and media. But we also organized a wide range of webinars for capacity building on issues that member states had to face and had to solve now and here. For example, we organized a meeting on how you organize high-stake exams, how you deal with teacher training, how you organize vocational training. And we were accompanying member states to cope with the COVID crisis and to offer them the resources, the peer learning, the platform to exchange and to learn together. UNESCO was acting based on demand from member states. Here is a concrete example. Senegal had a platform that was not operating, had teachers that were not trained to engage in remote learning, and had learners who had problems of connectivity and access to internet because of the challenge in terms of infrastructure, but also because of the cost of access to internet. What UNESCO has done through the Global Education Coalition is to mobilize a partner like Microsoft to develop the teachers' capacities to engage in the platform, and we enrolled in a few weeks 500,000 learners in the platform that the government had already, but we helped them operating it. We have trained teachers on digital skills. We have worked with Orange to zero-rate access to education, and that helped learners and teachers access to the platform, access to education resources for free. That's what we have been operating through Global Education Coalition. We have responded to a challenge of a member state. Second, for the first time, we had Microsoft working with an organization like Orange, working with an organization like UNESCO, working with the government. So this innovative collaboration is something new that came through a response to the COVID and through the Global Education Coalition that UNESCO launched together with partners. And today we have around 200 partners and we are operating in more than 100 countries. I think that there are several aspects that our, for example, Futures of Education report has highlighted. First is we need a new social contract for education, that we need to agree on what place we would like to give to education in our societies, in our economies, in the sustainable development path that we are building. Second, we need to act on some dimensions of the education aspect. One is the curriculum. How are we embedding into the curriculum new dimensions like attitude toward each other, like education for sustainable development, like global citizenship? And there is also the importance given to schools. Obviously, the crisis showed us that we need schools. We need more schools, but not the same school that we are having today. A new modality of organizing the teaching and learning, a new modality of governing schools, and a new modality of organizing remote learning and in-presence learning. And that's about hybrid learning, for example. And the last, which is related to this one, is how we connect the different learning spaces. We learn online, we learn at home, we learn in community, we learn in school. But we need to organize this learning so that it is valued. It is valorized by society, it's valorized by economy, and it's valorized for individuals themselves. We never put it in this way. And I think connecting learning spaces, valorizing the learning that is happening in different spaces will be something that we will have to take forward. And let me mention a Happy School initiative that we started implementing in Asia Pacific, and now we are putting at the global level. The purpose of the Happy School is that we come to school not only to learn, but also to thrive, to be in a better well-being, but also to connect with communities. And the Happy School is an initiative that connects the school with the community. For example, working with elders or engaging with elders in Japan. For example, working on sustainable development in Thailand, or working within the school to create different cultural activities in Laos. So these are some of the examples that I think we'll have to take forward at scale. We'll have to take forward in terms of considering school not only a place of learning, but it's also a place of engaging together. It's a place of better health, better nutrition, but also better well-being, and that's about happiness. So what we have been doing with the countries like Madagascar is to develop new modalities of recognizing learning happening in the workplace, in communities, and in vocational training centers. And this is very important today if we take forward this perspective of we learn from early learning to adult learning. That's the lifelong learning perspective. And the neurosciences shows us that we start learning very early, and that our further learning is predetermined already in early learning. The history of education is, of course, very long. And since UNESCO was engaged in education, we started with this principle that peace is built in the minds of people. And that meant we need to improve education. We need to develop education. Since 1945, we have been acting to promote education. But of course, there is a trend and an evolution. To give you an example, in 1960, half of the children in the world were not accessing to education. That's how we established the right to education. And it was very important to say that every children has to go to school. Since then, we have achieved much. In 1990, we have adopted the Jomtien Declaration. In 2000, we have adopted the Education for All. In 2015, we have adopted the SDGs and SDG 4. So the path has been long. And UNESCO has been the organization that advances rights in different areas, in particular in education. Learning is cumulative. It starts at very early ages and it continues till adult learning. Let me give a very concrete example. The Republic of Korea in early 60s was devastated. It was at the level of economic development as sub-Saharan African countries at that time. Today, it's a high-income country. It's one of the countries that have adapted and adopted technology at the highest level. It is mainstreamed in different parts of the economy, society, and in education system. Since the 1960s, the Republic of Korea has been investing in education, and UNESCO supported them since the beginning by printing just something like textbooks and helping them in looking at how their education system can develop toward a better and more inclusive learning for everybody. We see the result. They have invested in education and they have developed it, not only from an economic point of view, but also from a social point of view, from equity and inclusion point of view. And it's very important to say that even when countries are poor, if they prioritize education, this can yield result. Integrating education for sustainable development in the curricula and in the school system is a very important vector for action for all member states. We found that very little is integrated in teacher training. But obviously, if we want to ensure that education for sustainable development is integrated within education, we need at least 3 ingredients: curriculum, teachers, and school-based approach. And that's what you have seen, for example, in a country like China, where there were 100,000 schools who have integrated education for sustainable development in their program, but also in the organization of the schools. We have seen in Kenya, where there are schools that have implemented also this approach, and they have been working in how they can embed education for sustainable development, not only in the curricula, but also in the learning space, in the school premises, in the garden, in the classroom. So it's very important that we take those different dimensions, but we also act for capacity building, for building institutions that can advance the education agenda in the countries. And that's how we are operating through a program called Capacity Building for Education 2030. The objective of the program is to build national institutions so that the programs and the education is inclusive, is quality. The way we do it is we develop the capacity of the stakeholders, of decision makers, and we support in creating or reinforcing institutions that are active in education. For example, teacher training institution. And the objective is always how we can create capacities that are sustainable, that are viable at the country level, so that at the end there is a homegrown capacities for policy making, for policy implementation, and for policy evaluation monitoring. The objective of any capacity building is to give the autonomy and the capabilities at country level. It's basically helping countries to help themselves. And I think that's what UNESCO has been doing through this program for capacity building, is creating institutions that are able to develop programs, that are able to develop quality programs. And that's what where we can take the countries from one stage of development of their education system to a new stage, which is a stage of quality, inclusive, and lifelong learning opportunities for all. We are all lifelong learners. And in 2 years of activities, including through the Global Education Coalition, I have learned much. First, I have learned how to leverage the capacities of private sector, for example. I didn't know this, and I had to learn how to engage with them. I have learned that how we can build resilience of our staff to respond to the crisis, to work in a teleworking, but also to keep their socio-emotional well-being. I've also learned that the international cooperation and solidarity is not a rhetoric. It can be a reality. And that's what we have been engaging in the last 2 years. And I'm a lifelong learner. As the director of a division for lifelong learning, I have to learn every day. And I'm learning together with my colleagues, together with my partners. And this is something that has to be, I would say, a value for all of us. It's a value. Learning for life, learning in lifelong learning is a value, and we have to learn how to do it.
Asebe ngumbiko loyo wayo inhlangano ye-UNESCO waseCisi niketa nje sithombe ukuthi baqhubeka kanjani kakhulukati etinhlelweni dabo tekufundisa abafundi ngaphansi kwesimo semkhuhlane we-COVID-19. Sidabwa nje nayo indzaba yethu yegcina lapho kuyiwa khona ukuthi the New Republican US House to open in turmoil as McCarthy fights for gavel.
He's lobbied his opponents, made concessions, and even gotten a key endorsement from former President Donald Trump. Still, Kevin McCarthy's future as Speaker of the Republican-controlled House is far from guaranteed. The California congressman and former Speaker for the Republican minority was nominated for the job after Republicans took over the House in November's midterm elections.
I, for one, am excited for 2023. One-party rule in Washington is ending and accountability is coming.
But given Republicans' slim majority and the fact that no Democrats are likely to vote for him, McCarthy can only afford to lose 4 votes. And at least 5 conservative Republicans continue to publicly oppose him, saying he's too mainstream and won't stand up to Democrats.
I'm not voting for Kevin McCarthy for Speaker because he's just a shill of the establishment.
The position previously held by Democrat Nancy Pelosi is one of the most important jobs in Washington. The House Speaker is second in line to succeed the president and will set the House agenda in a divided Capitol, with Democrats controlling the White House and the Senate. An ugly and prolonged power struggle could undermine the Republican Party's leadership and their hopes of moving forward quickly on launching investigations into Joe Biden's administration and family.
3 minutes before 8 o'clock step esalapota ngephandle kwakuleli kanti ke silvala lapho ihlelo lomhla ekseni simakhuluhlatsana nathi lomhla ehlelweni sanvalele sasithema sindaba nelanga lelihle ensala kahle we'll see you tomorrow.
This is PrEP, otherwise known as pre-exposure prophylaxis. PrEP is for HIV prevention. PrEP can be used by HIV-negative people to protect themselves from HIV. For more information on PrEP, visit your nearest health facility or call 2030.